You know what I could really go for right now? Literally anything that comes in a McDonald's carton, wrapper, or bag. Or a McDonald's cup. Yes, any of those items should do it.
We've got your cravings covered. Now stop in for the flaky Filet-O-Fish, the crispy snack wrap, or large fries for just $2.99. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
When you manage procurement for multiple facilities, every order matters. But when it's for a hospital system, they matter even more. Grainger gets it and knows there's no time for managing multiple suppliers and no room for shipping delays. That's why Grainger offers millions of products in fast, dependable delivery, so you can keep your facility stocked, safe, and running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I'm a nobody from nowhere that ain't never done nothing. That's what I am. An old head. These young coaches, I tell you what, I can't figure these jokers out. They got a backpack on and tight something. I don't know what they're doing. They're getting on my nerves, I can tell you that. I know what ain't in the backpack. A string and a let me paint that line for you. That ain't in there. That's for sure. I had a kid the other day. He said, "Hey, coach, didn't Christopher Columbus write the Pledge of Allegiance?" I said, "He sure did. He also played quarterback for the 1985 Chicago Bears." He said, "Bet." That happened. Sun Coaches, Season 6, where coaches come and tell their stories. Some of them are funny. Some of them is going to help you in your coaching journey. Not everybody has a funny story, but everybody has a story. Hope you enjoy Sun Coaches, brought to you by Titan Sensor. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sensor for Season 6 and 7. Titan is made in the USA, proudly founded and based in Texas. When you connect with Titan, you are not alone. You can collaborate and share templates with other coaches across the country to build reports and foster competition. Used by programs such as State 6A, Georgia State Champion, Grayson High School, Titan can tailor a package to fit your needs. The eye in the sky never lies. Improve your team's performance with Titan. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 6, and today I'm very excited to be joined by the head football coach at Salem High School, Coach Michael Johnson. Thanks for being on with me.
Hey, appreciate you having me on today, Coach.
Well, Coach, where'd you grow up and go to high school?
So I grew up in Forsyth, Georgia. Went to Marion Persons High School, 2008 graduate. So definitely a small time vibe, but if you know anything about Middle Georgia, it's a real big deal when it comes to football in Forsyth.
So did you just play football in high school, or did you play multiple sports growing up?
Played football, ran track. Baseball was actually my first love, but wasn't that good at it. So kind of put that to the side and just kind of focus in on football and track. So.
And who was your head coach in high school?
So my first 2 years it was Steve Chafin, and then the last 2 years it was Coach Rodney Walker. So definitely had a chance to be around some good ones. And Coach Dan Pitts was always around, so it was almost like I had three at that time. So.
Yeah, being in the shadow of legend and playing for a legend, and Coach Chavin's a good one too. I mean, that's pretty awesome. And the tradition-rich Mary Persons Bulldogs, that's pretty awesome. How supportive the community is and how they get behind football to this day is just, it must have been pretty cool growing up playing in that, in that community and playing there on Friday nights.
Yeah, like I said, it was always a big deal. My family is a football family. Growing up in those small towns, from the minute that you start playing rec ball, everything is kind of slanted towards, I got to be a Mary Persons Bulldog. So, kind of going through rec, get to middle school ball, and then obviously high school. Those coaches that you mentioned, huge impact on the community. But, during my time that I was in high school and middle school, with so many different coaches that are either now head coaches, been head coaches, great coordinators, college coaches. So, kind of a big deal all around. But it's a special place.
Yeah, I did a Legend Series, season 5, and of course I didn't get to get Coach Pitts, but I'm going to get Coach Burdett on. His
Oh yeah.
his son was like, "You got to see if you can get my dad on." He was with Coach Pitts for like 30 years, and I was like, "Man, that'd be awesome." So yeah, I'm definitely going to tap into that Mary Persons tree and get there. So when you were growing up, I mean, did you know? I mean, what position did you play in football?
So when I say it, obviously you'll know it, but a lot of newer coaches don't. I grew up saying I was a split end or a flanker. It wasn't until Coach Walker got there that he was like, "Nah, you're a wide receiver." So it's a little bit different being in that wing tee, that flex bone, and those type of things. And then when Coach Walker came, he was like, "Hey, we're gonna go I formation a little bit, a little shotgun." I was like, "Oh, this is new here." So, those are kind of my primary spots. In high school at that time.
Well, did you get an opportunity to play at the next level, or did you just go to school to go to school?
So I had an opportunity to walk on down at Savannah State. So I went to Savannah State for my freshman year. And like right after I graduated, they had a head coaching change. And the new guy was like, we'll see you in January. By the time I got to January, I'm like, look, I'm 5'11", 150 pounds. I know I want to coach. So, I decided to go to Valdosta State from there and, kind of get into the education and the coaching world from there.
So you always knew you wanted to coach?
Yeah, it was always one of those things growing up. I'm like, my coaches always had a huge effect on me. So, one of the big things that I've already kind of been raised on is, trying to have an effect on others. And, my coaches growing up were always people that either push me, talk to me about personal things. And, I said, one day I want to be that for some type of kid. So it was always one of those things. And just the love for the game in general was an easy way to give back.
Oh, I agree 1,000%. I don't think there's anything better that you can be than to be somebody, a kid's person, because they all need, a person, because they don't all have one at home. And we can be that person for a lot of these kids. And that's awesome that that's what drove you to do that. So you're at Valdosta State and finishing up your degree and everything. So what was your first coaching job in college or coming out of college?
So my junior year, like I said, I was in the health and PE program down there. And a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, we need another assistant video coordinator, for VSU." He's like, talk with Coach Dean and see if there's something we could do. So he got me set up with Coach Dean. So, during that year, I got a chance to be the video coordinator for the team. And then one of my professors, he was like, "Hey, I know a guy over at Lowndes Middle School. We're going to have you doing some student teaching there. Would you be interested in coaching?" So I was like, "Sure." So, I reached out to the guy, Steve Holly. He's still down there at Lowndes, actually. And I always tell people he gave me my first coaching job. So I was coaching middle school ball at Lowndes Middle. We had about 3 coaches for the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade team. So it was a great experience trying to balance that and being at the college for the, being a video coordinator.
Oh, that's awesome. So breaking right in a tradition-rich program and getting to see it from the college side of it too, and getting that technical, as you know now as a head coach, that somebody that can operate the video part of it is an invaluable resource.
Oh yeah. With all the technology now, I honestly think if I didn't have opportunity to do those things at VSU, that I wouldn't be able to kind of operate as well as I do now, because most people think, okay, you're just recording. It's, you're recording, you got to get it uploaded. Coach Dean is fussing if you don't get it in the perfect way. So we had a great coaching staff at Valdosta State. So those guys like Seth Wallace, he chewing you out if, hey, you didn't film this right. So, it was it was a lot, but it was a great experience. It was definitely a great experience.
So what did you do after Lowndes Middle once you graduated and got out?
So once I graduated, I got a job up in Jefferson County.
Louisville, Georgia.
Oh, Louisville and Rennes.
Rennes, yeah.
So I got a job at the middle school at Rennes Middle School at that time. Obviously, Coach JB was at the high school. He was like, "Hey, you're the middle school coach. So, I came in and did that. A guy named Lonnie Ledger, brought me under his wing and was like, hey, you going to call some of the offense? You going to coach the defense? I was like, okay. I did a little bit of this stuff down at Lounge, but I was there for 2 years, and it was a great experience. Actually, a guy I played for in high school was actually from Rennes. That was the only way I had kind of heard of it. Got Lee Hanna. So he was one of my DB coaches when I was in high school, and he was from the area. So, he was kind of familiar. And we played against Jefferson County actually my sophomore year in high school. So, it's definitely a small town that most people don't know about. So it was very, very interesting the first 2 years.
Yeah, I'm from Evans, and we always, when we go back home, my parents are still living in the same place. And when we go back home, we'll go through Rennes before we turn to go to Harlem, to get back to Columbia County and go that way through Rennes and Jefferson County. And they've always been an interesting place, hotbed of talent. And Coach Arnold did such a great job for years when he was there. And so you're there for 2 years. So where did you roll off to after Jefferson County?
So my second year when I was there, I got a call from Coach Allen, and he was like, hey, I'm over at Baldwin. We just went to the second round of the playoffs. We only had 4 coaches. I know you played receiver for me in high school. Would you be interested in coming over? Got a middle school job for you and coach at the varsity level. And I was like, darn right. So, I moved to Eatonton, and I coached over with him for 2 years at Baldwin. We had some good times. Able to make the playoffs both years. Was able to work with some really good guys. Coach Ronald Owens is actually a basketball and football coach now down at Turner County. He taught me a lot about the game. I kind of tell people all the time, Sunday meetings, because again, all I knew was receiver play. When we would come in for Sunday meetings, he'd be like, all right, draw up the offense and the defense, for the upcoming week. And I've seen zero technique, one technique, 3 all those things. I had no clue what that stuff was supposed to be. So I'd just be able to kind of freehand, and he's like, no, put this guy here, put this guy here. So that really taught me a lot about the actual game of football outside of just, perimeter play. So those 2 years were definitely a huge effect on my coaching career.
That's awesome. So you're really being developed as a coach. You're moving up the progression. So after your 2 years with Coach Hanna, who you were able to play for, what were you able to do after Baldwin?
So after Baldwin, I had sent out a bunch of emails. I say it's kind of old school, but I sent out probably 50 different emails. I didn't know where half of these head coaches were at. Some of them weren't at the same schools. So I got a few emails back. And Coach Jared Laws actually emailed me back. He's like, hey, Coach, I got a position, pass game coordinator, work with our receivers. We got a good group. And the crazy thing is I email him at the Our Lady of Mercy email. So he tells me to come up and interview him. Like, let me look up a few more things about Our Lady of Mercy. He's like, no, Coach, I'm at Salem now. He's like, I was there a month ago, but now I'm here. So, I come up and interview with him, and man, I ended up being there for 4 years. Came in as
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Victory Lane? Yeah, it's even better with Chumba by my side. Race to ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
As a receiver coach, working with the quarterbacks, he's teaching me some of the things that he knows from the passing game and offense and defense. This is really when my eyes are kind of getting widened to the whole game. Even while I was there the first go round, coaching offensive line for a while. So, I coached with him there for 4 years. When we kind of got towards the end of those 4 years, he's like, MJ, I'm not kicking you out. But when you start kind of doing the job the same way I'm doing it, it's almost time for you to start branching out a little bit. So, he kind of pushed me to look for, my first head coaching job. I had a great time coaching with him because I always tell him, I said, you taught me so much about the game and how to talk with kids and deal with parents, all the things that people that want to be head coaches don't think much about. He taught me and gave me a lot of those responsibilities early on. So, he kind of pushed me out the nest. I got an opportunity up in DeKalb County to be a head coach. So I went to Towers High School. first workout at Towers, I had 3 kids. I was like, okay. Got to spring football. I had 14. I said, all right, it's going to be a little different. But again, we went out there that season. We went 3-7. Not a great season, but my seniors like, Coach, we won 2 games the whole time we've been in high school. So, this is something different for us. So, but the big thing for me was, just like Amon Tinker kind of taught me, was getting that first job and kind of seeing the ins and outs is one of the best things that you can actually do, to kind of advance the coaching career a little bit. So, that's kind of how it went after I left Salem there.
Well, when you get guidance from Coach Laws and Tink, those are 2 of the best in the business and 2 of the best guys in the business, especially to get that kind of guidance from. I mean, you about can't go wrong. I mean, you're set up for success just being able to receive that kind of mentorship from those 2 for sure. And, Towers is definitely a challenging situation. But, I mean, to win 3 games there is like going 15-0 at a lot of other places, because you're dealing with stuff that, most people don't understand what you would be dealing with.
Yeah, like it's a different place. But like I said, the experience overall opened up my eyes to so much. And I think it made me a better head coach from an operational standpoint going forward. Most people, when they look at some of these head coaching jobs and they say, hey, I'm going to hire this person, this person, this person. I'm going to do this, and this. And then, you find out, well, we don't have any spots in the building, those type of things. But it made me have to get creative and be as organized as possible for the kids and for the parents. That, even though it was a challenging year, it's probably one of the better experiences I think I could have had at that point in my coaching career.
So how long were you at Towers? Just the 1 year, or did you?
So I was at Towers for a year. My mother, she still stays in this area. She was kind of not doing well from the health side. So I was like, you know what? I kind of need to get back a little bit closer. I was about to go to Greene County out there with Coach Banks. He's my guy. But ended up having to be a little bit closer to home. So I went back to Mary Persons to learn under Coach Nelson for a year. Like I said, he was actually my receiver coach in high school. So, I reached out. I'm like, hey, Coach, I'm moving back to Middle Georgia, out to Jones County, looking for a job, PE job. He's like, hey, come in, coach the receivers, whatever title you want, which, again, that's something that I've never been big on titles. So I'm like, Coach, I just want to coach up the receivers and those things, and, I help out on the recruiting side. But I was just grateful that, he gave me that opportunity to be home for a year. So I came to Mary Persons for a year, coached with him there. And, after my mom started doing a little bit better on the health side, I got an opportunity to go back out with Coach Banks at Greene County to be the offensive coordinator. So, my second stint as an offensive coordinator, I sat with Coach Banks. I've known him for a while. And, being at Salem, I was a play caller going out there with Coach Banks. As you know, he's an offensive guy. He's an offensive. I tell him he's a guru, but he's going to tell everybody he's not.
Which means he is.
Which means he is.
Yeah.
He'll say Google me, but that's my guy.
Yeah, he's definitely a savant.
To come on. Oh yeah, he is. He definitely is. So when he brought me in as OC, and this is a discussion that we have all the time, a lot of people kind of misconstrue offensive coordinator responsibilities with being a play caller. So I had those responsibilities of helping to organize the scripts, the game days. Assistant coaches, obviously on Friday nights, Coach Banks is calling the offense. Situationally, I'm making suggestions. But one of the big things that it helped me with during that year was perspective. Is, being able to see things the same way that he sees things and knowing the whys. It helped me grow. A lot of people say, I don't want the coordinator title if I'm not a play caller. When in reality, those are 2 different things. So for me, it was a blessing to be able to do those things, work with some great coaches, be in a great place like Greene County. And, we had an opportunity. We went 9-1 in the regular season and came up just short, literally inches against Bowden in the second round. So, definitely had a good opportunity out there in Greene before I got a call to come back to Salem to be the head coach. So, that kind of kind of wraps up my journey. It kind of started a little bit in 2011 and up until now.
So this is year 2 or 3 at Salem as the head coach.
So this will be year 2 at Salem as the head coach. I guess this is year 6 overall at Salem. So
how important?
definitely
I'm sorry. How important would you
no,
say it was for you to foster those relationships when you were there the first time, so that they thought enough? They obviously thought enough of you, to want you to come back and serve as their head coach later.
Yeah, I think it was huge. The Conyers area, like I said, when I first came in, I didn't know much about the area, but the connections in the community, the connections on the education side were kind of priceless. When I got the job, Principal Jarvis Price brought me in. Nick Collins, who's he's been a football coach for years, is my athletic director. He's like, hey, come in. I know you're familiar with the place. You kind of understand. We've had some struggles recently. Had some turnover. So one of the big things for me is talking to him. I said, yeah, I do have familiarity with the area, but the biggest things is the relationships in the area that kind of carry all 3 of the schools in the area, really. So, I really think having that familiarity is kind of helping me as we kind of try to right the ship here.
So what were some things differently that you knew coming in? Because you learned so much that first time you sit in the big chair. When you come in that second time, what were some things going in that you were like, all right, I reset, I went and learned some more stuff. What were some things coming in that you were like, all right, I'm going to make sure these are my priorities when I come into Salem this time, as the head coach. What were your first priorities coming in to establish your program at Salem?
I mean, my first thing was to make sure I kind of reach back out to those people in the community. One of the big things at Salem is because of the location it is in Conyers, it's kind of unseen. So with that being said, kind of reaching back out to those people, establishing those relationships in the parks, establishing those relationships at the middle schools. Same thing with parents, because a lot of the players that I actually coached the first time at Salem either had siblings that were in the school system already, as far as high school, and some were in middle school. And just kind of like, hey, we got familiarity, the things that could happen here at Salem, things that have happened before in the past. And, let's see if we can kind of build upon that. But also, like I said, knowing from last time, okay, these are the positions in the building that'll be available that'll help me to be able to, attract the right guys. So my first year, last year, I was able to bring in some guys. They always say one of the most important things that you do is find your line coaches and find your coordinators and your strength guys. So I had a great opportunity where my principal allowed me to bring in a guy who would be my DC last year and be a good strength coach. And just kind of got the ball rolling. So those are just some of the other things. Understanding the parent perspective. Parents nowadays are different. A lot of people like to say parents and players now are, all negative, but I think just understanding the needs of these kids, the needs of the parents in this area has helped tremendously as far as just pushing forward those relationships and getting the buy-in all around.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I wouldn't say they were necessarily negative. It's just different. It's just a different time. I told our kids today that, they're in an unprecedented time as they're going, and, their aspirations are playing at the next level where they are looking at getting paid to play college football. Yeah. And they're going to have to kind of change their mindset on how they think about things and present themselves and language they use and, things like that, because you're asking other people to invest in you. And just trying to put that piece in front of them, get them to understand, your language and your culture in the locker room cannot be the same thing it is in the meeting room. And, when it's your time and you're with your guys, that's your time. I get it. But when you're out in public and things like that, you're going to have to dress it up a lot. And that was something that I wanted to make sure to get the kids to understand today, that, something that they just don't think about, that was hammered into us, growing up, and we just, It'd never crossed our mind to be profane in front of the coaches. It just
Correct.
wasn't a thing, And now they don't even, you correct them and they're like, "Oh, my bad, coach," because they just don't realize. You know what I'm saying? They just don't.
Yeah.
They just don't realize. I mean, there's not bad kids. They just don't. I mean, it's just a different culture. It's just different teenage culture this day and time. And I don't care if they're African American or white or whatever. I mean, race has nothing to do with it. It's the culture of that age group, and they're just different. And for a lot of them, nobody's ever sat them down and said, "Look, baby, you got a chance to go. We want people to invest money in you, and in order for them to do that, we're gonna have to, dress it up." So that's awesome, reaching out and getting them in. And I agree with you 1,000%. I think it's just different. I mean, it's not bad. It's just different. So I think that's awesome.
I think one of the biggest things for us was kind of like you talked on the communication piece is, just with the places I've been and the way I was kind of brought up playing and coaching is, like you said, we're not profane in front of coaches. We never would have thought of that. The way you communicate, whether it's via text, DMs. So I kind of tell people this a little bit. One of my biggest things from last year to now is if the kids will call or text or email, some of them like, "Yo, coach," and all these things.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
And I think they kind of got to the point where after I kept hammering home, hey, I'm not going to respond to "Yo, coach." If you're in a professional setting and you're reaching out to a college coach, he's not going to respond either. When you start going to these job interviews, they're not. So one of the things I would see is if a kid did text like "Yo, coach" or something like that, I would either see them correct the text or send another coach saying, "I apologize, coach. Good morning," and then kind of go forward from there. So, it's one of those things that some of the kids just don't know. So pushing that forward is very small to most people, but I think it's one of the things that is actually going to help us on the field. Just our kids having an understanding of there's a specific way that you do things and there's a time and place for everything.
Oh, absolutely. Teachable moments. And that was what I was, trying to get across to the kids today. Same exact thing is, and it's not getting on to them. It's, for a lot of kids these days, they don't know, they don't understand that that's not how we talk to each other at work.
Correct.
Emailing your building supervisor, "Yo, Mr. Jarvis, sup?"
Yeah, exactly.
Let me holler at
Definitely.
you after first block. You'd be like, "Okay, yeah, I will be hollering at you after first block, as a matter of fact." We're going to have us a good little discussion.
Just don't know.
Right. And it's something you have to learn. I mean, it's a behavior thing, and it's
Correct.
just something you have to learn. And we are teachers. That's part of to me, that's the biggest part of our business is we have to teach them a lot of different things these days. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just got to be patient with them. And it's like I told the guys, I was like, I'm not expecting you to completely get off profanity like, cold turkey tobacco user or, addict or whatever. But, it's something that's going to take some effort. I said, as an adult, I let it slip every now and then, but it's something you have to teach yourself. It's a self-discipline piece.
Correct. So, and that's going to take them longer. It's going to take a few of them a little bit longer, but in the long run, and when you talk to kids that you've maybe coached years ago and they come back and they're adults, they're married or whatever it may be, and they say, "Hey, coach, a lot of those things that either you talked about or some of the other coaches were telling us back then, we're seeing it now in the real world setting." And, I had a guy who's actually in the military now. He came back and talked to me last offseason. He was like, "Coach, all those things that y'all were telling us back then, and I just kind of was brushing it off, man, all of that stuff is coming true now." I said, "Yeah, you thought I was just blowing smoke." But, so that's just part of the process is seeing the growth. And, whether we see it in the immediate sense on the field or we see it 10 years down the road off the field, it's all beneficial.
Well, and it's part of fostering positive relationships with the kids too. I mean, I talk about what motivates people. Well, I mean, you got to kind of get to know the person before you really know what motivates them, and building that relationship with them is so important to get them to be able to buy into what you're doing. And I'm sure you've had to do that at Salem as well.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the foundations of the program overall is relationship building. Every coach that I brought in either last year or this year, one of the first things I ask them about is how how do they build those relationships with kids? How they build those relationships with admin, other teachers, people in the community. I even tell some guys who may be fresh into coaching, I can teach you ball or I can send you information to get in contact with people on that side. But if you're a great person first and foremost and a great relationship builder, you've kind of hit the jackpot already. And if kids understand that you care about them as a person first and foremost, and it's not always just football, 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 then like I know that kid will go out on Friday nights and give it a little extra just because he knows that you care. And these kids, for the most part, do not want to let you down. They don't want to let themselves down, but they definitely don't want to let you down if you've already kind of fostered that positive relationship with them.
Absolutely. So how was were you able to do spring your first year at Salem?
Yeah, so last we did spring last year. I had no offensive coaches at that time. I had all defensive coaches. So, I'm an offensive guy at trade. So we went through the entire spring. I had 4 defensive coaches and then myself. So it was a lot at that time, but the numbers were good, the vibes were good. We knew that there wasn't a lot of confidence, just from the returning year, coming off of a 1-9 season and some down things. So the big accomplishment or big goal for last spring was let's see who wants to compete. It doesn't matter if they're incoming freshman or they're a rising senior. Let's kind of start setting the tone now. So that down the line it's kind of established. This is the way that we'll practice. This is the way we'll prepare. These are the expectations at practice, the expectations in the building. So we were able to have a pretty good spring, and I think we left last spring with about, I'd probably say close to 60 players in the program.
How much different was spring this year compared to last year?
Oh, this year's spring was 10 times different.
Probably a lot. You're probably like, hey, man, I got coaches over here with me this year.
Yeah, like I said, last year I had 4. This year I had 10, and I brought in a play caller from out of state in Florida and some other guys on the offensive and defensive side. So one of my biggest things was like, I got to find something extra to do outside of, keeping up with the clock, because I wasn't quite used to having guys at every position, having 2 guys at some positions. We're kind of able to stay within the confines of practice on the schedule, because I wasn't having to slow everything down and do everything on my own. So, like I said, the kids understood now the kind of the standard, the expectations of how we practice, the speed and tempo of practice, and just how to go about it in a better and professional way. So it was definitely a much better spring overall this year than it was the year one.
Did you guys get to play a spring game, or did y'all inter-squad it?
No, we played a spring game against Money's Mill, and they were kind of in a situation where they had just had a head coaching change. So when me and Coach Coleman had kind of talked, we're like, hey, we're both young. Let's get these guys out here, let them compete. Just go from there. One of my big things with playing a spring game this year is, to me, a spring game is basically a glorified practice. It's an opportunity to see some kids, some competitive situations against another team. Let's see some situations. How do we react? How do they react? And that was kind of the same wavelength that me and Coach Coleman were on. A lot of these other schools, and when you got those Jimmys and Joes, that's definitely what you should do. But you got some places where a spring game can be a Super Bowl, and it's not always an indicator what you do in the spring will always follow up in the fall. So we're able to get a lot of quality reps. We're able to put some, I say, good mistakes on film, because it's stuff that as I go through this summer and we get to the fall, I can always refer back to. We had some situations where we had some touchdowns called back, and then when I had this kid at workouts today, He's like, you know what, coach? I understand why I'm not supposed to be down the field as a guard if it's a passing play, and those type of things. So, definitely, I say overall, a really good spring.
Awesome. So how does summer look for you guys? I know you told me off air that y'all were doing 3 days to start out with in June and then kind of ramping it up as we get closer to July. So you got OTAs and 7-on-7s and those kind of things scheduled for the guys, I'm sure.
Yeah, so actually tomorrow we're actually going up to Griffin to do a little bit of 7-on-7 and those things. So like I said, we got a good 12 days of work this summer. Every day we'll make sure we get a good lift in. Whether it's a competition day, we have we're going to go to UGA next week and have a couple of play dates with Green and Central Macon, and just a lot of competitive situations for our kids to grow. I brought in a strength guy from down at Chris County, Coach Williamson. He's really good at what he does, and one of our things when me and him talked is, even though we're going to have a lot of these competitive situations in the summer, we've got to make sure our kids touch some type of weight each and every day. So if that means we got to come in an hour early before 7-on-7 to get an extra lift in, that's what we're going to do. Because we're young. We're young and our guys are hungry, and they need that developmental piece on the strength and conditioning side. So a lot of good work this summer coming up. I'm excited about it.
So how does the region look for you guys this year?
So our region is got a smaller region. It's Columbia, who won, was a region champ last year with Coach Barnett, Coach Brown over at Miller Grove. You got South Atlanta with Coach Franklin, and then we have Redan with Coach Williams. So we actually only have a 5-team region. A lot of those guys, in that DeKalb area, they have a lot of talent. Coach Barnett and Coach Williams, those are guys that have coached for a while at a high level. Coach Williams being at Southwest DeKalb in the past. Coach Barnett is kind of turned Columbia into one of the better 2A programs in the state. So, it's always good to kind of see, hey, this is the standard that's current, and this is the standard that we have to kind of chase. So, a lot of good coaching and a lot of good athletes in our small region.
And what are some things you think as a younger coach now that in your second stint that with the current landscape of high school football in the state of Georgia, what are some things challenging that you have to think about or deal with that maybe they didn't have to think about back when you played?
I think it's always the elephant in the room. We got the different GHSA rulings and meetings coming up here soon, but one of the biggest challenges is the transfer thing. Again, I get it. Some people benefit from it. Some people don't benefit from it. It's kind of where today's game is. But, that's a challenge. Having to check in with your kids over the day week, like, hey, you still going to be here when we come back in June or, X, Y, Z. So, that's always a challenge. Parents having an understanding of why we need to be present for certain things. And, kind of you talked earlier off the air is the calendar with NCAA has changed so much. So with so many different things going on in the month of June where, it's a lot harder than back in the day to get guys to be there. You got college camps, you got official visits, all at the same time that, you're trying to get your work in for the summer. And it's already a little bit more compressed because we've got 2 dead weeks and those things. So I think those are always big challenges, but, I think we've done a good job as a coaching staff being able to preach to our kids through the whole offseason the importance of not missing. I mean, you get 12 opportunities in June for us to get better, and, why not take advantage of all 12? So, that's the big thing for us. Some of those challenges that you see everywhere.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Victory Lane? Yeah, it's even better with Chumba by my side. Race to ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
Yeah, one thing I always talk about when I get Metro coaches on here, guys that coach in metro areas, is how much different it is as far as you can throw a rock and hit a school, right down the road, where when you grew up, Mary Persons, where are you going to go? And you're gonna have to get in the car and drive somewhere if you're gonna go somewhere. You know what I mean? You couldn't just there wasn't another school 4 miles down the road or 10 miles down the road. Stuff like that, and then just all of the other things that kids have. I mean, you have restaurants. I mean, there's places to eat. I mean, they got stuff to do. I mean, there's opportunities for them to do so many other things, in those areas these days, and just trying to give those kids a good experience and a good opportunity. I think that's something that you guys have to. And like you said, growing up for you, it was, I'm going to play at Mary Persons on Friday night, and that's important. And I'm not saying it, not at Salem per se, but at some of the, in metro areas, that not necessarily, it's not so much that, I'm going to play for Salem when I grow up, because I'm not going to play for, Blue High School when I grow up, because there's so many other things in the area, and there's so many other things for them to do. It's just different. And I tip my hat to you guys having to deal with what you have to deal with. It's just so much, and the game's changed, NIL space has changed, the transfer stuff has changed. I mean, you guys just have to deal with a whole lot more than just parents and admin and everything else when you're the head coach at a program like that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that when you have your parent meetings and your player meetings, and even with your coaches, is making sure that here at Salem the experience is as high class as we can. You know, has it had a whole bunch of success in recent years? No, it hasn't. We didn't have a lot of success last year on the field for my first season back. But the big thing is, okay, how can I make sure that our student athletes that walk through these halls at Salem have the best possible high school, experience that they can? Just making sure that in the end, it is still a game, making sure that practices are fun, making sure that, the things that we do from an offensive, defensive, and special team standpoint keep kids engaged, making sure the personalities have to match, because it's a lot of different dynamics, as you said, of trying to keep kids focused. And, I think this is kind of statewide, is you have to put all of the focus on who is there. I think a lot of times, and this happens at the college level and high school level, a lot of the focus is on people that aren't there, the guys that left, and those type of things. Again, that's life. When you're at jobs, people leave. So that's something you're going to experience in the real world. But you have to put a major focus on the guys that are there and make sure that you're pouring into them each and every day, because, you never know how things kind of shake out in the long run, and what they're going to actually build from that in the future.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about all the people that poured into us, not only just coaches,
Right.
but I mean, you've shared the guys along your journey in the coaching profession that have mentored you and helped you out. And on that note, what are some things you would say to younger coaches out there listening, advice you would give them that are aspiring to be head coaches when they grow up? I mean, you did it the old fashioned way. You started at the bottom and worked your way up, and have been fortunate enough to get back into a head coaching position, and have had to fight through some struggles and things like that to make it happen. It just doesn't happen overnight, and it's not easy. So what are some things that you would share with some of the young coaches out there to, encourage them, or advice you would give them?
I think one of the biggest things is patience first and foremost. Again, I know we're kind of in that microwave era, but just have patience. Find a mentor. One of the biggest things for me was having those mentors, whether it was making calls to Coach Walker and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Or just reaching out to other coaches in the area. One of the things that Coach Tinker did for me was he allowed me to be a part of a lot of these different camps and expos, kind of network. I think that's the thing that coming up, a lot of coaches did a lot more than they do now. I know we got social media, so you can send messages, but get out to other places and learn stuff from other people. Don't kind of put yourself in just one hole. Like I said, I grew up playing receiver, got into coaching at receiver. Probably my most fun year was coaching the offensive line. Learn something different, get those mentors, and just make sure that at the end of the day, you have something to kind of hang your hat on. when people bring you up, it's not always just about football. Obviously, yeah, we are football coaches. But again, being men first, being educators, being leaders in our buildings, our households, and all those things is more important than what your title is. I don't knock anybody that wants to chase titles. I have guys on my staff who have titles. But I think one of the biggest things is no matter where you are, is learn everything you can from that head coach, those guys on staff. Get to being in a situation where you see the head coach needs some help in some areas and he doesn't have to ask you. Every place I've been assistant, it's things I saw kind of in the first month of being at those places. Okay, how can I take this off a coach's plate? At Greene County, hey, how can I help Coach Banks? At Mary Persons, hey, Coach Nelson shouldn't be the guy that's in there washing clothes in between each lift. So every day I just kind of came in and did it. It was never something that he had to say, hey, Mike, come in and do these different things when it comes to clothes and laundry. It's just one of those things that, hey, I see something needs to be done, just kind of do it. So, those are just some of the things, a mentor and taking those responsibilities and being the best that you can at whatever you are at that moment and not rushing it.
Yeah, I like what you said about, showing people that you're something besides a football coach. I live on a golf course, and one of the guys I play with on the weekends was like getting on to me because I don't practice and I only play once a week with them or, maybe twice. And he's like, man, if I lived on a golf course, I'd play every day. And I'm like, I didn't say it, but I'm sitting there thinking, well, I have other things that I like to do. I mean, I like to read. I like to, I do this. I coach. I have, my son, I like to spend time with. I have other things that I like to do. And you say that
Right.
you would just do that all the time, but I think it's important that you do have other things that you do. And people, not only the people you work with, but it's important that the kids see that you do other things besides just that. I think that's part of building those relationships with those kids too.
No, it definitely is. I talk to my kids all the time about, what are things they like to do. And like I said, I stay out here in Gray. It's not much out here in Gray. But I talk to them about, hey, have you tried this type of stuff at different restaurants? I like to just sit out in my backyard and just listen sometimes. But I think kids actually genuinely enjoy when they're able to get a small glimpse of some of the things that you like to do outside of football, because it helps them understand, okay, coach is not just here to have us do X, Y, Z every day. Talking to them about different experiences.
We had a kid today, and I'm new at the school I'm at now, and he was wearing a Punisher comic book T-shirt and it had the Punisher's logo on it. And I don't know his name yet. And I coach offensive line. He's a skill guy. I don't really know. I don't know him. We got 80, 90 kids. I've been there 7 days, and I was like, the Punisher. And he just lit up. He was like, oh man, I didn't think anybody else would know who this was. And I was like, well, I'm kind of a nerd. I like stuff like that. And man, we just had, he was like, me too, man, coach. And he started telling me about, what he likes, comic book stuff and cartoon, just stuff like that. And some of the other coaches are looking at me like, really? And I'm like, well, this is how I talk to kids. I mean, this is how I can get them to, because I am a Star Wars nerd, and I am, dragons and elves and stuff like that, and comic book stuff. And, and it's a way that I can talk to the kids and show that, hey man, that's cool. I mean, at least he knew, because most of them, they're wearing something and you say something, they're like, oh, I don't know. I just grabbed this shirt. I don't know what this is.
They got no clue. They just kind of saw what it looks like. And so, it's those type of things that 10 years from now, I'm like, man, I remember when I sat and I talked with Coach Lamb, and he knew who the Punisher was. And I wasn't sure that anybody else on the staff probably knew, or anybody else in the building knew.
Well, you know how old coaches are. That's
it.
what his nickname's going to be for me now. Every time I see him, the Punisher.
Definitely.
And he's a linebacker, so, I mean, that's a perfect nickname, I think, But, I mean, it was just fun. It was just cool to see the way his face just lit up, like, oh, man, somebody gets it. They know, they know that he noticed, he knew, he knew I got somebody else I can talk to about this kind of stuff. And I mean, I don't know a lot about it, but I'll sit there and listen. I'll let him talk to me about it all day.
Right.
And like you said at the very beginning, being being that person for a kid, I think is something that you're definitely doing, and that you're showing that you're pouring into those kids at Salem. And for you to want, not only them wanting you to come back, but for you to want to go back, I think that says a lot too about, the impression that those people had on you when you were at Salem.
Definitely. Like I said, I tell the kids all the time, they said, Coach, you stay way out in Jones County? I said, yeah. I said, why you want? I'm like, this is a place I want to be. I've been here before. I just kind of love the Conyers area, and I think them understanding that it's a place that you want to be and you want to come in and pour into them every day is going to help. Hopefully it pays off on the field, but I think in the long run it'll definitely pay off with them understanding that you care overall about the place that you're at, the lives that you'll affect, and the future lives that you'll have an opportunity to affect on and off the field.
Well, Coach, with your mentality and the way that you present yourself and how you're running your program, there is no doubt the kind of effect you're going to have on it. And God knows we need a heap more men like you to pour into our young people these days. And I appreciate you coming on with me and sharing your story with us. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for you in this profession and what your football program accomplishes this fall.
I definitely appreciate you having me on. Like I said, I've listened for years at a lot of the pods, see a lot of the message board stuff, and just getting the opportunity to get on and kind of talk ball a little bit with you, talk programs and all these things was just, it was a blessing. So I definitely appreciate all those kind words that you gave, and I'm looking forward to another great season.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, I appreciate you.
Drew McIntyre here from WWE. Wielding the Claymore can be a life of chaos. When I'm not dominating in the ring, Chumba Casino is how this warrior takes a wee break. With hundreds of online social games and new weekly releases, there's always something fresh to try. And those daily boosts, next level. Even my free time feels like Valhalla. So when life feels like a battle, kick up your feet, have some fun, and let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T's and C's. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
If you work in university maintenance, Grainger considers you an MVP because your playbook ensures your arena is always ready for tip-off. And Grainger is your trusted partner, offering the products you need all in one place, from HVAC and plumbing supplies to lighting and more. And all delivered with plenty of time left on the clock, so your team always gets the win. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, visit Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.